All right. Husky Huddle. Is this
Yes,
is this an exciting Husky Huddle as we enter Merrimack?
it has to be. I'm pumped up. I have to be. I have to be excited. I have to be excited. I can't come down for this game. This game has to be our coming out party. I'm convinced.
Steve, before we get into the preview and all that kind of stuff, first of all, obviously we have Shane Stafford as our guest.
The GOAT.
The all time passer, correct at UConn. Am I right?
Well,
Shane?
it all
He's
depends on which category you're looking for.
Oh
Yeah.
well, definitely passing efficiency has to be number one
Yeah.
of
yeah.
all time. There's no doubt about it because I
It-
remember
it-
the most efficient passer that I've ever seen at UConn, hands down, was Shane. And I've seen many games of his at the Arena League as well, as I used to
he
go
was
visit him back in
amazing.
the day. Shane was obviously my
all too
roommate
kind.
for a couple of years, so we played
He was
together,
a stud. He was a stud in the Arena League.
no doubt. And the
I'll never
winning
forget when
and
Dave hit me in a spring game. I ran the option and he hit me and he looked over me. He goes, "I will always have you," and he just laughed at me with his little chuckle.
That sounds
Or
like
something. He
Dave.
said, I just killed you," or something. With that chuckle right there.
I was like, don't ever run option at me. That's not gonna happen. That's not happening. You want to run ISO at me? You can do that. Don't,
Yeah.
don't run option at me. But yeah, that was Shane was obviously a great player, and had obviously the most wins when they went to the what quarter was it, the semis, or you lost to the champion, right? You guys lost to the champ.
Yeah, we lost to them. Beat them twice in the regular season. Yeah, Steve and I, we spoke about this a few times, but yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We ended up losing. No. We beat
You lost to
UMass
Georgia
twice
Southern,
during
right?
the season. UMass ended up winning
Oh, they
the
won
whole
that
thing,
one.
and we lost to Georgia
Yeah, they
Southern.
beat UMass twice. They beat
Yeah.
UMass twice. But I
And
was
then-
at both games.
Oh, you were.
That's
he was
why
recruited,
I went to
yeah.
UConn. That's that sold me on going to UConn the both games, because when I went to UMass UMass and UConn at UMass as a UMass recruit,
Right.
and the UConn coaches talked to me much more than the Merrimack coaches did and spent more time with me.
Mhm.
Coach Googs and Coach Bevel and Doherty spent time with me much more than the UMass coaches did. And then I saw the game, and I just saw that the energy that UConn had, and it was a no brainer from there. It was like I want to be a part of this.
No, it was they really had a rolling at that time. There's no doubt about it. Shane, how much NIL money would you command now?
Oh my god!
God.
Let's put it this way, Dave.
At least 6 figures.
We would have had it. I would have definitely asked for it.
You would ask at least 6 figures, and that would have meant for me, because as a linebacker, I would have only been able to get like $1,000. So I would have had to live off of you. You know what I mean? I would have had to live off I would have just followed Shane everywhere he went, and because he would.
Hey, how about this? Our lights wouldn't have been out after the Christmas when we weren't able to pay them and come back.
You remember when I think you guys all left for like winter break,
Yeah.
and I was in there. I think I was done playing, right? I was in like
you were a graduate then.
graduate. I was in grad school, and I taught myself in the dark, with like candles, because we had no lights. I was like, screw it, nobody's here. I'm not paying for the lights, and I would just use candles.
Yeah.
And when it get dark, I would read by candlelight like Abraham Lincoln. And I remember I would tell shit. I was like Abraham Lincoln up here. So it was the winter time. So it was, I just get lots of blankets and pay for nothing. And then I had the candles, and I would read. I taught myself HTML coding over winter break, and by the
Are you serious?
I was building websites.
100%, Steve.
Holy
crap!
I came back and this dude had like 3 websites built.
Oh my God!
Making money,
Dave. That's
So he would have
amazing.
followed me anywhere. He would have created his own path, no doubt.
That's correct. If I had just stayed there, I should have went for my I think about it now, but
No,
I was
I
kind
don't.
of
Your
I was
master's,
ready to
you
work,
said.
but I should
Oh.
have went for my PhD in or whatever you call it,
Like a
doctorate in
doctorate or something?
yeah, I should have went for my doctorate in like programming and engineering because I was already in the MBA program. I got it in technology. I think it was technology.
Yeah.
And I was a finance undergrad, so I should have probably just did that because then I would have developed all the programs I needed by the time I got out of there. But anyway, we're here to talk about UConn football.
Hey, for some reason, y'all went.
What's that? Hello?
That's all right. I think we lost
Like,
it
I
for a
heard you
second.
great, and then you stopped.
Oh, I
there we go.
said we're here to talk about UConn football versus Merrimack, a major powerhouse in absolutely nothing, but UConn, we've got to take it to them. So let's talk a little bit about it. Last week we
laid an egg.
We laid an egg.
There we
So
laid,
to speak.
Yeah, laid an egg. But the great thing about football is how much you improve from week 1 to week 2, right? So how much we improve this week will hopefully dictate what'll happen for us the rest of the season.
And Shane knows that. Shane knows that too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simply the perfect opponent because even though Merrimack played, we talked about it earlier in the week, they played Air Force pretty tough.
Yeah, I looked at I got the box score up.
Okay.
Right here. And their quarterback was pretty efficient. He was 14 of 21 for 7, but he only had 74 yards. And they only had 103 yards of total of passing and 114 yards rushing. So their total offense wasn't spectacular. I mean, you're looking at 217 yards of total offense. So
I think even saying decent is kind of stretching it.
Yeah. They were very efficient with their passing game.
Yeah.
They didn't try anything crazy. They kept everything underneath, and they didn't take any chances because they knew that they didn't match up with Air Force. So I think their game plan was to try and not to turn the ball over.
Okay.
And just do what we can do. See if we can move the ball. If we can't punt, we'll give it to Air Force. And even them on offense, if you look at Air Force offensively, they only passed for 71 yards. They only rushed for 166 yards. So they didn't have a lot of yards of total offense.
Yeah.
Next defense that good? Is it or is it just Air Force didn't take them all that seriously?
I think Air Force is a team that is not a team that's going to have big plays, that's going to score, fast and make a difference. They're going to have long drives, so each possession is precious, and it probably took them a long time to score.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you only see the 21 points. Now I'm looking at the turnovers. Now that what killed Merrimack was they had 3 turnovers, and Air Force did not. And Merrimack had 11 penalties, and Air Force only had 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that made the difference right there. If you look at the game, it was. I mean, statistically, total offense, total defense, it was a tight game. I mean, they played them tight. Yards per pass, Merrimack only averaged 3.4 yards per pass, while Air Force only averaged 5.1 yards per pass.
Yeah.
That's just, that's not going to get it done. And then the other big difference, Dave, third down efficiency. Merrimack was 3 of 15 on third down. 3 of 15.
Yeah, that's awful.
That's awful. Yeah. They were 3 for 4 on fourth down.
Yeah.
So they have the cojones to go for it on fourth down. But looking at the team stats and looking at the numbers,
Yeah.
they turned the ball over, and that's really what gave Air Force the opportunity to win. Air Force didn't do anything special to win the game. It looked like Merrimack gave them the game. And Merrimack has I think a veteran quarterback, and Malachi Anthony is their quarterback. He is a veteran, I believe. He's from he's the senior from Washington D.C. He's been playing for several years. He's usually very productive. I don't know for sure when they moved to Division 1A. They were a very good Division 2 team. And I remember I took some of my high school recruits there, and this was in 2017, 2016. And they were I thought they were Division 2. So I don't know the progress of when they went to 1AA and when they went to 1A. It seems like it happened pretty damn fast.
They were in the NEC, the Northeast Conference, for a year or two.
Okay.
But they've left that to move up. I don't know what their facility.
Wow.
It's interesting because I see they have like an NIL thing. So they have like, if you go right to their site, they have their like little.
That was the first thing I saw.
Yeah. Yeah. I can get an athletic decal for $100. I think I can. Couldn't I go in the Merrimack gift store and get that for $5 though?
Yeah, right.
You know what though? Kudos to them.
Yeah, I mean, no, they actually have. I'll give them this. Like, it's right on their website. The main, you saw it. That same thing I saw.
It's like, the first thing that comes up.
They're putting it out there that they're trying to raise a lot of money. They have a directors club of $15,000. And they have some BS things that they're giving them, but they're trying to raise. It's the first thing that I
first thing that comes up. The first thing that comes up when you click on their website is that. And Shane, let me ask you. UConn had Nick Evers, the starting quarterback. He's a transfer.
Yep.
And he obviously had his struggles. And I know you've been through everything. If you're coming in and the weight of the world is on your shoulders to perform, and you struggle one game out, what is your mentality going into the next game? How do you get yourself ready and forget about last week's performance and let's make it up in this week's performance and have a positive attitude?
You just go back to work, man. I mean, you don't have time.
That's what it is.
Yeah, you learn from your mistakes, and then you just move on. To be honest, you can't dwell on it, good, bad, or indifferent. That's what I used to tell people when coaching, whether high school, college, or professionally in the arena league, good, bad, or indifferent. Your next day, your next play has to be your best play, and that's what I've always told them, and that's kind of what I lived through. And I'll tell you, great coaches, they don't let you dwell on the good, bad, or indifferent. They make sure you stay moving forward. And that's kind of the approach you have to take.
And Shane, what was your view overall on the Maryland game? I mean, you got to watch it. I couldn't find it. I saw it eventually.
Yeah.
But, watching it, what was your take?
I was a little disappointed, disappointed. I thought I just didn't think we competed at a high level, to be honest. I just didn't think they were disciplined. Just guys not looking balls into their hands. Tackling was terrible on defense, in my opinion. But there's a lot of things to be said for that showing. Is Maryland that much better than us, really?
That's what scared me. That's what scared me.
If that's the case, then Maryland must be a hell of a football team, or we have a long way to go.
That's what scared me too, because Dave, you and I talked about it. I thought Maryland was a middle of the road Big Ten team.
Yes.
I don't think they're an upper echelon Big Ten team with Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, right?
No, they're good. They have a good offense, but I didn't see like
Nobody lit it up.
Maryland scored 50 points. It didn't look like they even had really a sense of urgency in that game.
Right.
So that's the part that was concerning to me. Like, it didn't look like Maryland was even taking UConn that seriously, which would have been an opportunity to have a chance to at least be in the game.
It looked like a scrimmage, yeah.
Yeah, and they just poured it on without even really like working, like breaking a sweat. That was what was most, if I were to summarize what was most concerning. Now, the good thing is, like, the positive is we should be more athletic than Merrimack. We should be bigger and stronger than Merrimack. We should have better skill players than Merrimack, just off of, us being Division I longer and probably recruiting alone. We should be we should be better than them. So, and if Coach Mora, obviously who's been around a long time and been an NFL coach, that he knows this week is the most important week of the year. Like, literally, if we win this game, we have an opportunity, because it's not like our schedule is this hammer schedule. To win quite a few games. I think if we're in a dogfight with Merrimack, I'm going to be very concerned. Even if we win, and obviously if we lose, if we lose, that's a different conversation. That's
exactly.
That's a whole different. But I'm saying if we blow Merrimack out like we should and dominate from the beginning, I don't even care if Merrimack scores a couple late touchdowns or anything like that. Right. I'm concerned with how we come out. Do we come out with authority, put it on them, get a sizable lead, and show that we're ready to go? If we do that, then I think we're going to have a chance the rest of the season. We don't, like I said, we don't play a hammer schedule. There are some hammer games in there, but those will be tough for us regardless. But the rest of the games, we're going to have an opportunity to play well and have an opportunity to win those games. But if we come out and it's like, honestly, like an Air Force score, I would be very concerned, because if we go and we win a game, 14-7, 21-14, something like that.
That's not going to do it.
I would be very concerned, and I'm hoping that's not going to be the case, because then I would be like, wow, I would actually think we just don't have good enough players if that's the case. Like,
and to build on that, Dave, like, we need to impose our will from kickoff. And to your point exactly is, if we score 40 and they score 2 late touchdowns, whatever, that's understandable. But the way we went into this Maryland game and getting shut out the first quarter and getting shut out the second quarter, and defensively, I don't think we're that bad. I really don't. I do think we're poor tacklers right now, and a lot of times that happens early on, because nowadays with the way people practice, it's going to happen. And we don't have the athletic players that Maryland probably has. So that kind of showed in that game. And Steve, to your point though, too, looking at the box score and everything like that, with what UConn did from passing efficiency wise, 14-33, 2 picks, obviously we got to get better from that standpoint. But if they can control the ground, use the legs of the quarterback a little bit.
Cam Newton and Evers. Cam Newton only getting 5 carries, I think, is criminal.
Cam Edwards. Cam Edwards.
They got to ride him.
That's not Cam Newton.
Yeah, I was like, dang.
We had Cam Newton. I know we're winning that game. I know we're winning. We got Cam Newton, baby.
Hey, and he's playing running back.
Oh,
man, our quarterback is good.
Bring him out of retirement. Does he have any eligibility left?
Hey, as long as he has a cool hat on, that's all that matters.
That's it. Like, give him the ball. Just let him carry it every play.
The running back, number 0, Cam. Cam is the guy.
Cam Edwards,
Cam Edwards. They got to feed him. They got to feed him. They got to feed him. Let him take the offense.
Yeah,
defensively,
I agree.
Shane, I am not sold on the 3-3-5. I think it's a gimmick defense.
You need a lot of athletes to run that.
100%.
And I don't know if we have those.
It's a pressure-oriented defense. It's not a defense you can sit back in and just play.
So,
you got to bring 5 every time, and you got to disguise your blitzes. And you're right. If you don't have the athletes, the reason you're playing the 3-3-5, Shane, is because you're deficient up front.
Yes.
You don't have 4 down linemen.
Yeah. That's the hardest thing to find recruiting wise is 4 great down linemen, or even going too deep into that. You know, there's athletes everywhere. Dave, you know this, running all the combines you've run, finding good interior guys. That's when you find one, you got to keep on that guy, and you got to make sure he comes to your school. You know, you can find athletes. I mean, they're a dime a dozen nowadays with all these different combines and different things that are out there. But yeah, I think that maybe, but I don't think they have. Yeah, there's so much that goes into this. It's
I think that's I think you nailing it, Shane. Like, so D linemen in football today, just because the way everything is, that nobody wants to be a lineman and all that kind of stuff when they're young. Everybody wants to be a skill guy. So what happens is there's X amount of defensive linemen that could be big contributors in college football. And the big schools take almost all of them. Yep. Like, literally, that's where they're bet. Like, what does Georgia and Alabama have that's different? And LSU usually,
yes,
they have D linemen.
They'll gray shirt them. They'll do all those things.
That's exactly right.
But Shane, we
got that. That's where USC. That's why USC beat LSU. They finally had defensive linemen. They haven't had them in a long time since like the Pete Carroll era. They finally had defensive line. Lincoln Riley was like, "Holy cow! Yes, we could score, but we need to take some of our NIL money and use it on some defensive linemen because that's the difference maker." Like, if you look at like Colorado, what's the problem that they still have? Even though that's probably the two of the best skilled players in the whole country, the problem he still has is he doesn't have the elite D linemen. The teams that have the elite D linemen.
When I was over there coaching at the junior college, that was the biggest difference of the great teams in the conference and the average teams or subpar teams. And it was all up front. And even at the professional levels, everybody says you need a great quarterback. Okay, yes, you obviously need one because they hold the ball 90% of the time. But you got to get after theirs and protect yours. If you can do that, you're going to always have a chance. And that's what I don't think we're good enough up front on either side of the ball. We're better on it from an offensive standpoint.
Yes.
But from defense standpoint, number one, we're not deep at all. That's why we're playing
the depth
defense we're playing. And number two, because here's the thing, even if you can, because here's the thing about that defense. You're right, Steve. It is kind of I don't want to say a gimmick defense, but it works if you have the athletes.
100%.
You got to be smart enough on how to disguise things, because one thing from a quarterback perspective is you don't know really where the blitzes
are coming from.
The safeties are the ones that kind of dictate and show where those things are coming from because of how 100%. They roll coverage. So you really got to study, and the quarterback has to be smart enough and wise enough and watching enough film in order to understand that. So when they start rolling things, you got to understand, okay, I need
it's coming from this side.
Or if the play call is a run into the pressure, well, I want to go away from the pressure. But the other thing you can do with that 3-3-5 or 3-5-3 or however the heck you want to word it, here's the deal: is you got to slant certain things. You got to play games up front. You can't let your guys truly be athletes at times up front if they are athletes,
it's all movement.
They're all taking steps to help create gaps and everything for that second level and possibly third level. So it's I think this is one of the few times where I think the defense is potentially behind the offense, and that's saying a lot, being the fact that our offense is struggling right now, and it is on the quarterback without a doubt.
Shane, they have, I mean, 60 new players with 22 freshmen and 27 transfers from the transfer portal. That's a lot. I mean, you pretty much revamped your entire team. Yeah. So I'll give them a mulligan because it's tough to get that group to come together. And hopefully this week they do, and they show it, because they haven't had a ton of time to play together. And Dave, we talked about it. We go to the website to try to find updates on practice, and there's nothing there. I remember, during the days when I played, when Shane played, we could go to the boneyard, we could go to the website. There was someone was covering the team every day and posting daily updates of practice for who looked good, who did not look good, who struggled. So we really didn't know a whole lot going into this game, other than who was starting.
We don't even know that much this week. Like, we don't even know who the quarterback's going to be, because yesterday
Evers got hurt. Yep.
Mora said he's not sure yet if he's back, he will go. If not, so it's if you try to compare that with, even just Syracuse, right? Syracuse has updates. Boston College. That's one of the other things. It's like Syracuse is now on the rise. Boston College had a huge upset over Florida State, right?
Yep. Bill O'Brien did a nice job.
The whole thing, everything in football comes down to the players, period, end of story. And it used to be that you could do this. You obviously always had to have great players, but you might be able to do some things and maneuver
automatically.
Yeah.
Not anymore with money being involved the way it is. Like, we know basically based off of who cares about star rankings. If a coach is willing to pay, if he's willing to pay X amount of dollars for a player, he's damn good. Like, if I'm paying the quarterback for Tennessee, they paid millions of dollars from Nico Iamaleava, you knew he was going to be pretty good. Like, right out the gate, his first game, he looked really good, right? Like, no one's shelling out that amount of money for a miss. You know what I mean? Like,
they can't. They won't do it.
No.
Now, someone within your own team might outcompete you. That could happen within your own team. Like Ohio State, I don't know. They might have 4 guys that are dogs at quarterback, right? And they're all paying them. One guy might end up being better than the other. That obviously happens. But same thing with Texas. Look at Texas. They're paying Quinn Ewers $1 million plus. They're paying
and Manning
$2 million. Okay, so Ewers is probably making more. You just don't know it, right? But Ewers is going to be a first-round pick. Manning, as soon as he gets in there, is going to be starting.
If they keep him,
he'll be a first-round pick. He'll be a first-round pick. Like, we already know that stuff. The only competition at these highest teams is between their own players, literally between their own players, and then
they have them in the building.
They have them in the building, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to get the start because this guy is, I guess, just a little bit better than me, and I got to go somewhere else. But that's the thing that, and Steve knows. I say this over and over and over again, just because I've been in the NFL and I know the NFL as a agent, and I just know what they're willing to pay for you is what they value you at. Like,
absolutely.
It doesn't mean that you can't be better than that value or worse than that value, but there's a value that they have you at.
There's a perception, yes.
Yeah, there's a perception value that they have you at, right? And that, for if you're stacking teams, you think about it, to me, the easiest way to think about college football is if you were to take a youth sports team and in a town, put all the best players on one team.
An all-star team, yep.
All the best players on one team, and they're playing in recreation, some sort of recreation sport, and playing against all these other teams, but all the good players are on one team. Okay. So that's how college football is with money.
That's what it's turned into,
It's the Harlem Globetrotters.
They're all in these 20 teams.
Yeah.
25 teams. They're all on those teams.
Yeah, that's what that's 100% what it's turned into, and that's what worries me. And Shane, the quarterback that came in, Joe Fagano, I think his name was.
Yeah.
He was comeback player of the year. He was awarded from last year.
Mm-hmm.
He performed very well against Maryland in the second half when he came in for Nick Evers in the third quarter. If he starts, I don't have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what he can do.
He
Can't do any worse. I mean, Evers was 6 of 17. He wasn't very efficient. He didn't make any big plays, but he did have some drops.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. My problem is with the running game because they do have some horses at running back, and to not feed them. And I understand when you get behind early, you think that you have to abandon the running game and throw the ball to try to catch up.
It might have been the perfect storm. They got behind early. They weren't able to use what they might build this team behind. I don't know. Maybe they were challenging the quarterback to see what he could do as well. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with you 100% there. I think this guy, Joe, I've watched a little bit on him. He does make good decisions, and that's something that we need. Quick story is I'll never forget why Skip started me, and that was only because I took care of the football. That was it.
You didn't turn it over. You never turn it over.
And to your point earlier that you made, even though they might have a lot of sophomores, juniors, seniors on this team or whatever, I don't know the makeup exactly of how many seniors, how many juniors, sophomores, so on and so forth, but it is a new team. So what you need to do is you need a quarterback that's going to execute this offense, not try and showboat. I don't mean that in a bad way, but not try to work outside of the realm or framework of this offense. Hand the ball off when it's supposed to be handed off. Keep the run game. If it's 4 yards in a cloud of dust, which I know these kids don't even understand that anymore. It's more like throw it 40 times in a cloud of dust. But the point is, you cannot turn the ball over. You can't have 3 fumbles lost and 2 picks or whatever it was, kind of a deal. You got to give yourself a chance.
Shane, let me ask you. I mean, they were primarily in the shotgun. They primarily ran a lot of zone. In my opinion, if you're playing against a team that blitzes, you got to run some gap schemes. You got to run power. You got to run counter. Those are safe. You can run power into a blitz. You can run power away from a blitz. Certainly. It's something you practice. When I coached, that was one of our blitz checks. If we had a blitz coming away from us, we would run power. If we would have a blitz coming to us, we would run counter. And like you said, it's about safety recognition. You get the safeties dictate pretty much everything. And Dave and I talked about watching the documentary on Connor Stallions on how he stole, the signals. From the press box, I could tell you what defense they were running every time. You can tell from the safety rotation. You can tell from the linebackers if there's going to be an inside blitz, if there's going to be like a cross axe with the Mike and the Will, if they're going to run America's blitz off the edge. They bring the Sam off the edge, and they bring the Will. That's what everyone does. And you have to have answers for that. And I don't know if they, what their offense is, if it's a check system, if it's a package system where they package plays together, or they just call it and haul it. And that's my issue. If they just call it and haul it, I think that's going to give them problems because now you have to practice every play you run against the blitz. So you're able to execute it. Instead of just having blitz checks.
And to that though, it's not just about the blitz. It's also what the interior, what the that first level's doing, what the D linemen are doing, because if they're bringing a blitz from our right, those guys are probably going to be slanting to our left.
Absolutely.
And you have to be coached up well enough. And this is where I say coaching does come into it as far as technique and honing and harping on that first step, understanding what is being expected of you from your position. If you do your job and you take the right steps and then you follow that track as an offensive lineman, as well as anybody, you're going to pick up somebody. Somebody's going to run into you. And you just take that guy and drive him. But you got to stay low. You got to take that good first step. And also, as a quarterback, they need to understand that now, too. And so there might be, as you're saying there, Steve, there may be plays that are better to run into a blitz than they are to run opposite away. So if you're blocking down, and kicking out like a power type of concept, you know what I'm saying? You're perfect. You're just going to wash that whole thing down.
Gave it all down.
Yeah, the running back has to beat one man. And that's all you can ask for.
That's all it is. That's all it is. If you're running power and the blitz is coming, like Shane said, as an offensive lineman, you take your step and then all you do is stay on your path and you block whoever comes to your path, whether it's a defensive lineman who's slanting or whether it's a linebacker that's coming down. Mm-hmm. Somebody is going to be in your gap. Mm-hmm. And as long as you stay on your track, like you said, with power, you cave it all in. The guard pulls around. He kicks out one guy, and it's a house call. That was one of our blitz checks. If you don't want to run the ball against the blitz, then you gotta have a quick game. You got to go
you're sliding your protection one way, and the back's picking up that secondary blitzer.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. You gotta throw slants. You got to throw outs. We would do the mini digs.
Yeah.
And in the seam ball, a dig in a seam. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times the seam from the tight end would be wide open. There's so many 3-step concepts you can run that'll beat the blitz as well. It just depends on your philosophy as an offensive coordinator. And we have 2 new coordinators. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like, I don't know. You guys would know better than me because I didn't watch the entire game. If Maryland brought a lot of pressure or if they just sat in their base defense.
I don't remember now.
Yeah. I honestly, they were up so much. I don't think they really showed a ton. You know what I mean? They got up by 28 and they're just kind of
it was 23-0 at half.
Hey, keep everything in front. Yeah, 23-0 and but you bring up a good point, Steve, is we don't have an identity, and it's hard to create an identity after week or at week 1. Unless you're in Alabama or heck, even they change identities potentially year to year. It's we need to create some identity and stick to it.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And Dave, like what you said, this has to be our coming out party. Like if it's a 21-14 game, that's not going to get it done. It's got to be a Maryland type of game where we drop 40 on Merrimack and send a message that UConn football is for real. And
so, Dave, let me ask you this. Go ahead, Steve. I was going to say, let me ask you this, Dave, because you've coached a long time now. How would you approach the second game? Like, what would you try and do identity-wise, to create it?
I think against a team like Merrimack, you got to try and just overpower them, run the ball.
That's what I would do, yeah.
And then you got to. I'm assuming because they do have one receiver. UConn has one receiver that did a great job.
Skyler,
right, did a great job against Maryland. You probably could stretch the field with him, and he's probably going to be faster than Merrimack DBs. And I think that's what you got to do. You hammer it. You really work and run the ball, run power, come at them, run counter, come at them. See if Merrimack can handle your physicality. If they can't, you're going to score 40 points just from that, and then going over the top
and play action. Yeah.
I think you're going to go over the top of them, And I think defensively, the biggest thing that will help us is Maryland's receivers were running by our DBs. That's not going to happen. Should not. Let me rephrase. Should not happen with Merrimack. We should be, to me, like there are upsets that happen. North Dakota State played Colorado tough. They could have beat them, but they're obviously an elite FCS program. I think you look at it and you say, the bottom line is, I don't care what scheme Merrimack has. They could have Vince Lombardi himself coaching. It should not matter. They could have Vince Lombardi, Bill Belichick, all of them lined up, right? The best of the best.
Yeah.
Bear Bryant, Nick Saban. And it should not matter because they should not be close to us athletically. And
talent-wise, yeah.
Right.
I think you're right. I think Shane's right on this. If we have an identity that, hey, if we can establish the run and gain yards here, everything else should open up for us. We need to see that first. I think this is the game to see, is our line good enough to just run the ball against a team that we should be superior than physically? If we can do that, then you know what? Maybe we have something as a team because we'll probably be able to do that against Buffalo and Georgia State and Temple, right?
We have two good tackles. We have two very good tackles. One of them's elite and for some
one guy's going to get probably drafted, right? So
yeah,
or he's going to be in the NFL, at least get an opportunity in it. So it's I think that's the big thing, and I think if we're able to do that, then I think there's some hope for us. If we have to come out and they stop us running the ball, or we don't dedicate ourselves to some level of the run, that to me is a red flag that Coach Mora and his offensive staff know that we have some holes.
Yeah.
And he feels like he's got to throw the ball to win the game against the Merrimack to do it. If that's the case, then I think that there's a whole bunch of different – we might win the game, but there's going to be a whole bunch of different issues. Because I think Skyler's going to run right by – before we go to Skyler, because I think he will run right by him, okay? And have the opportunity – or if you get him in space, I think he's going to be tougher than the handle. But if we don't try to run the ball and see what kind of line we have in a game that we should win,
right?
We need to know that. Like you as a head coach, you want to know, can we just bully this team?
We got to establish a run, right?
If we could do it, then I know for the future games that there's going to be possibly an opportunity to run the ball. If we just abandon that early or don't try to do it, we're going to go to each one of these games not knowing whether we can run the ball. I think we need to know that. I think we need to know, can we run the ball physically? Can we push this team off the ball? And if we can do that, that will help us, because we know we're going to win the game at that point if that's the case. But it will also help us with our passing game and to prepare for the future games. There are games that are very winnable games. The future games down the line that we can go and prepare that, okay, run game is going to be the thing. But if we come out and, like, I don't know, he gets stuffed a couple of times because they know we're running, and we just abandon and start chucking it all over the field, and even if we win, maybe we win, right? But that's not going to tell us what we can do. Like, we need to figure out if we could run the ball. Because in college, if you can run the ball, you're going to have a chance. It's still college football, right? Like, Georgia still runs the ball if they need to, right? Like, and that's the best probably program, in the country right now, right? So they can still run the ball if they have to. And I always go back to, and I love Mike Leach, God rest his soul. He's one of my favorite coaches. Like I've run a lot of the stuff that he runs, and they win a lot of games because they're able to throw the ball really well. But it was always hard to win a really important game without having that run game where you could just run people off the ball, because eventually you're going to face a team that's defensive linemen that can get after you. And then what do you do then when they're getting at your quarter? And Shane, you can speak to this better than me. Any quarterback who is under duress, I don't care who you are, is not going to be as efficient as he would be if he has time, right? I mean,
well, yeah, because your routes they're not able to develop either. So And again, to your point though, Dave, like you're going to have better athletes on the outside too when you face those teams. So you got to man versus man. I mean, let's tighten up our bootstraps here and let's get downhill. We need a yard. What are we going to do? Throw it? No, we got to be able to get a yard when we need a yard for 31, 4th and 1 type of situation. So I totally agree with that, especially now, just to build confidence,
Right.
in this team as well. They need to just physically be better. People need to be unselfish. People need to understand, yeah, it was a terrible first outing. Okay, great. Let's go ahead, learn from it, put it behind us, flush it down the toilet, and move on to the next game. And, if they do that, I think going into week 3, yeah, they should be back to at least even, you know what I'm saying, as far as mentally understanding where they are.
Yeah, and Shane, I've said this 100 times, and Dave knows this. I played for Randy Edsall, and Randy Edsall had success. And the reason he had success, in my opinion, his philosophy was, I play at Rentschler Field, I play on grass. I'm going to have the weather advantage when it comes October, November. I'm going to run the ball. I'm going to play tough defense. I'm not going to turn it over, and I'm going to play field position. That was his philosophy, and that is how they won before. They ran power, they ran counter, they ran a lot of play action, they played tough defense, and he would punt the ball and try to pin teams back and play the field position game. And that's how they had success.
Round 2, when he didn't have that Randy Edsall, and when he didn't have that ability round 2, okay?
Correct. Yeah.
He didn't have that ability to run the ball in round 2. He didn't have as many of those guys as he was later in his career, and the game was kind of changing a little bit at that point. When he didn't have that, the team obviously struggled tremendously. So that tells you, like, at UConn,
he didn't adjust. Yeah.
In the Northeast, knowing that right now we're still a little bit behind the 8 ball in a recruiting standpoint, we need to know that we can get those. Listen, to me, offensive linemen still don't cost that much, okay, in the NIL world, right?
Right.
Like, we love Steve Cully, but like he would not have been as expensive as Shane Stafford would be, right? And I would have definitely been probably way less expensive than Steve Cully. So I would have been like, here's a pass to nickel night for $5, and you're good to go. But I
don't know what you're talking about.
I would have got some pretty girls though. But it definitely is a situation where I think that also is something I think you can attract. Like you could get guys to come to UConn on the offensive line, and I think you could get running backs, because running backs don't cost as much as they used to.
They're a dime a dozen. Yeah.
Right. So you can get running. So that, like, you have to know what are things that you possibly have. QBs and receivers are going to be harder to get elite guys. You might get, going back to when we played, like Dak Newton was a smaller guy, but he was a burner. Like, so that would be the kind of way you'd have to make it up. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you could not afford, you get a guy that maybe wasn't as big, that's a burner. But those are harder guys to get. I mean, QBs and receivers are hard, but you can get linemen, and I'm just thinking, like, I hate always thinking about it from like what can you afford to get, but it's like part of the process now. Mm-hmm. And
that's what the general manager is for now. I mean,
it's part of the process. Like we have to be looking at it right now. Like, let's see. That's why I say, let's see how we run the ball. Let's see what kind of running backs we do. Cam Edwards was very good last year. Let's see if he's still that kind of a guy. And now we'll know. Okay, great. December, the portal opens. Okay. Mm-hmm. We know we need to have certain things here, because a quarterback at $250,000 to get a really good one I should say a really good one because Manning is $2 million, but like at least a one for level that we're at.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're
It's
paying
all relative, man.
50
It's
grand
all
for our
relative.
quarterback. Yeah.
That's going to be hard. That's going to be hard to get. Like that's going to be and you got to think about where you are, right? If you
Correct.
can choose, if you're choosing places, Syracuse hired a coach that has a big Jersey connection. He's one of the best recruiters in the country. You know,
Yep.
you're in that area, Steve. So, one of the best recruiters in the country. He's going to be tough to compete with. Look, he has the Ohio State quarterback. He somehow landed that guy, right? He has to be, not only do they have the money, but he also has to be a hell of a recruiter, right? Boston College has who's the head coach of Boston College? The guy who's in the pros.
Bill O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's going to have Boston College is going to have a huge alumni network, right? Even though they're in different conference. They're in the ACC. You're still the Northeast is limited in players. Okay, it's
absolutely
in players, and they're in certain pockets. New Jersey, Pennsylvania come to mind as the two probably biggest pockets. Pennsylvania probably number one. New Jersey number two, right? Those are the pockets that you really have most of your players, and then you got to start dipping into Maryland. You have to, you have to try and
get some from
some guys from New York, where you're from, Steve. That upstate New York era has always had.
We have a couple
players. Yep. New York City now has a few players here and there that could do the job, and so when you're competing for those guys, even though everyone's competing nationally. You have to start to establish certain things to know, not just for now, but the future, right? I need to know if I can run the ball. If I can't run the ball, I need to know what we're going to have to do until we can run the ball, until we can get the guys to run the ball.
And you're exactly, yes, Dave. God, you're hitting it. And I wanted to say this before I forget about it, but I was always taught to establish a good team, whether offense or defense, you start in the middle. Your center, your nose, your mic, your
interior,
your safety, kind of your interior guard, center, if you run a, whatever defense it is, your secondary, interior. But you have to establish that interior. They have to either be really, really smart or extremely athletic and just gifted football wise. But you have to establish that interior. And then to that next point you were making, Dave, this is so true. Again, going back to what is our identity? If we can't run the football, how, as an offense coordinator, this is your job now. How can we utilize the athletes we have and the quarterback we have? Do we need to do more motions? Do we need to simplify this offense? Do we need to do more personnel changes?
Yep.
Do we need to
run
pass options?
RPOs,
things. So is your quarterback smart enough to do all that? Is your team smart enough to do all that? Those are things we don't know because we're not in the locker room, but those are things that, and this is why I say coaching is important up until game day. Then game day, it's all about, hey, athletes, y'all got to go make plays, man. That's why you're here. Right. It's our job as coaches to prepare you and put you in the best situation. But game day, hey, we may call a bad play, but hopefully we have options in that play to where our worst play is a gain of 0.
Shane, you had Carl Bond, you had Torrey Taylor, you had RC, you had Barry Chandler, and you had the ability
Fitzsimmons,
to put us in the right play.
Yeah, Chad Martin. Yeah.
You put us in the right play, and you knew because you studied the film and you knew it was coming.
Yeah, you know what, Steve, is I wasn't, even as a senior, given that freedom to just go ahead and just check to what I saw best. And looking back at that stuff, as great of a season we had my senior year, I truly believe, because think about this. Todd Fitch, Skip Holtz, both of them, my offense coordinator and my head coach, both of them were under the age of 35.
They were very young.
They only had a few years at their positions. Todd went from being
Skip's first job.
Yeah, a linebacker coach to being my quarterback coach.
Right.
And some of the fundamentals he told me are completely opposite of what I teach now. And what
yes, it's different
players,
now.
you know what I'm saying? Like we were good because we were together. Like
Yes,
that's
you were
why
a family.
that made
You
my
were a
senior
family.
year great.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of guys that believed in each other, that believed in the system, that believed in. But gosh, I swear to goodness, had I had some freedom to get in the shotgun and not
So
just go.
you couldn't check, like if you had a play called and you saw that a blitz was coming and
Not
you
all the
saw there was
time,
going to
no.
be a blow up,
Not all
you
the
had to
time.
run it.
No, not all the time. Only some certain
Okay.
times.
Okay.
Certain times, and it frustrated the hell out of me. And
But you followed orders.
yeah,
You
Skip wanted to
didn't go
control
rogue.
the game. And to what you're saying, Steve, though, he had that game plan like Etzel, and what you're saying, Dave, too, like round one when Etzel was successful of ball control, field position, all those different things. That and don't turn the ball over kind of a deal. That's how we were successful. We won 10 games that year.
Yeah. Yes.
And
it's the most in UConn history.
I truly believe that once I started to learn the game, just
But
out
you
of
were
watching,
always a student of the game, Shane.
yeah.
You were
But
always a student of the
I
game.
wish I could have been able to check to, like, if I see a middle high safety
Yeah.
one coverage with a guy like Dak Newton that we were talking about.
Yeah.
That dude should have had 10 touches a game. He might have gotten 4 or 5 at the most.
Right.
Dak Newton would have set all kinds of UConn records if he would have been able to. If we would have always. So my senior year, we always had a bubble screen. Not always, but a lot of times
built
into a play.
Yeah.
So I would read that linebacker over top of Dak or the slot receiver, and I could throw that bubble if I needed it.
Okay.
And, man, it was just such an easy way to get 6, 7, 8 yards.
It's just like a run.
And then that took that linebacker out of the box, and now we want to run power. Yeah, exactly.
It's open.
We're hitting it downhill, and now, Torrey Taylor or Barry Chandler or Ricola Jump, they got to make one guy miss 8 yards down the field, and it's a wrap.
Yeah, 100%.
So many things go into this.
100%. And Dave, the key, I think, Merrimack had 3 turnovers, 2 were fumbles lost by the running back. Merrimack is a shotgun team. They do a lot of zone. They do a lot of RPOs. So look at the total offense. They had 217 yards. Air Force only had 237. And, passing, Air Force only had 71 yards passing. Merrimack only had 103. So it was not like a barn burner of a ball game.
Right.
It was Air Force taking advantage of the turnovers that Merrimack had.
And Air Force is still triple option too, right? So Air Force is still triple.
Yes.
So, yeah, they're not going to throw 100 yards.
That takes some. You can
they had 55 carries running the ball.
Yeah. So Air Force, Army, Navy, right? They'll struggle with a team that's not that good, and they'll also make a team that's really good struggle, right? Because
very true.
The way that they run their offense, it does take time to move down the field, and you could, I don't know how I didn't watch any of the games, so I don't know what Merrimack did, but you can make a team.
I watched a little bit.
You did. You can make a team in the triple option. Okay, you could force them to go all the way up the field, which takes a lot of time to score. And Air Force is perfectly happy to do that. They know they're going to win the game in that situation. You're going to win in that situation. So they're perfectly happy to do that. At the same time, when you play like when one of those teams plays like a bigger FBS program, one of the reasons why they do very well against them, if they have enough guys, is because their patience in the system. Whereas a defense, like let's say they're playing a Utah or something in your Air Force, you're playing a Utah. Those guys are used to making big plays, sacks, and they're going to get frustrated with it. 4 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards, first down. that I can't tell you what that does to linebackers and defensive linemen.
Oh, it drives them
It
nuts.
drives them wild, and then DBs get frustrated. Guys who are used to playing teams that throw the ball over the field, right? So Air Force. That's what I think is like they ran it 55 times. It means that they were just perfectly happy to control the clock, get up the field, take their
21
time.
points was good enough for them. They knew 21 points they were going to win the game.
That's a win. That's a win for them. You know what I mean?
Because
Against anybody, probably. But yeah.
Well, they don't have the ability if they get down to come back.
Correct.
They're going to struggle to do that.
Yeah.
So they had to take advantage and get up and take the lead. And that's the same thing that happened to UConn. UConn got down fast to Maryland. They didn't have the ability to come back. They don't have the passing game to come back.
And that's my point with the run game. UConn has to exhibit that patience if they're willing to do it against Merrimack early on.
Feed Cam.
If they go down the field and run the ball, establish a run, score 7 points, and they do that again, and then they want to start throwing it around to see what they can do. They're up 14-0. I have no problem with that.
Right.
I think you need to go see that you can push them around, have the patience with your running game. And then once you get up and you realize, hey, I'm better than these guys almost no matter what they do, they're not going to have a chance to win. You want to chuck it around to see what your QB can really do? I'm cool with that. But you got to exhibit the level of patience. Now, Air Force does it for different reasons. They want to make sure the option is going right. They're getting the reads correctly. That's why they're going to exhibit patience. But UConn has to do it from a power standpoint. Can we exhibit our will? Are we physical enough? Can we score just basically running the ball primarily? And now that we've done that, great. We know we're going to win the game. Okay, let's see what our quarterback can do.
Right.
Let's see if he really can throw the ball. Let's see if he can run the ball. Let's see what he can actually do. And then I think you start to build a package. If you come out, you win that game. Now okay, we can do these things.
Yes.
These are things we can do.
These are the concepts we can
run.
run.
Opponents to us, right? Similar opponents. And now, okay, you know what? Like we talked about at the beginning of the year, right? They could win 6-7 games, maybe 8 games because of the schedule or whatever.
They should. Yeah.
Yeah. Then now we know this. Now we confident what Shane said. You'll have the confidence,
the momentum,
to go in those games knowing you could do certain things. And then defensively, the biggest thing is there are some games we might be outmatched athletically, but those other games we're not. So if we are, even if we're running the 3-5-3, we should match up athletically against certain teams. There are some teams that we're going to match up. We're going to be a bad matchup with athletically. We play Duke. It's going to be tough, right?
100%.
It's going to be a tough game. But going into it, if we know we could do certain things, now we know we play at Duke. Okay. Hey, if we can establish a run, lead the clock. Don't let them hit the football.
Yeah.
You don't know what happens. If you're only down 14-0 or you're down 14-7 or 21-7, you get to the second half, you make some adjustments.
Yeah.
There's a lot of game left.
You can't abandon the run at that
That's
point.
when upsets happen. That's when you could start going and throwing it around. Hey, we're close, man. Like we ran the ball to keep it close. Now let's try and chip away at these guys.
Yeah.
A turnover here, there. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yep.
Shane, I had said this before, and Dave disagreed with me. I honestly believe against Merrimack, and I said this against Maryland too. I'm always a big defer if you win the coin toss. You always defer. I think UConn, if they win, take the ball.
Against Merrimack?
The ball against Merrimack, shove it down their throat, establish who we are, send a message that first drive. I think we should take the ball, send the message, and that will make the difference. And that will give us the confidence we need to pour it on.
Here's what I'm going to tell you is, depending upon the week of practice from an offensive standpoint, is what I would do going into that coin toss. If we're not getting it on offense, hey, let's let the defense send the message.
The defense out there.
Come on. But if offensively, if we're clicking going into that week and our running backs are looking good and our quarterbacks looking good, I totally agree. And it all goes into the preparation for the game. Typically, I would always defer.
I always defer. Typically. I believe in it.
but yes, against a quote unquote lower tier team, I don't mind going out there on offense first, but I always like to control what I can control.
Exactly.
And that would be taking the ball in the second half. So if we score right before the half and then we get the ball, now that's a defensive stop already right there.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't mind
you
that.
Stop them right away. You stop them right away. The defense has no confidence from last.
Well, the defense gave up 600 yards.
I'm saying, but if they could stop them right, well, I guess you could look at it both ways. I guess if they could stop them, they're going to be confident. Then our offense probably will roll. But if, God forbid, Merrimack comes right down the field and scores.
Yeah, you talk about
that would be a deflator. That happened when I think it was Randy, the coach, when Villanova beat us. I think Villanova beat us. So Villanova had
Holy Cross beat us, and that's when he got fired.
Was it Holy Cross?
Yeah, okay. Holy Cross beat us, and then he got fired.
Okay, well, I think a couple of years, or maybe it was under Diaco.
I know they struggled against Rhode Island or lost against Rhode Island.
Villanova beat us, and Villanova had this quarterback who's from New Jersey, who I thought should have been like a higher level guy.
Yeah.
And he just torched us with like RPOs and I remember they scored like right away or something. And I remember thinking, I remember thinking, oh my God, that's crazy. And that probably got in their heads a little bit. And it was back and forth the whole entire game. And I'm like, wait a minute, Villanova's gonna win this game.
Well, they did beat. I do recall that game now. Yes. Yes.
Nova's a good FCS school.
They're very good. Yes.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. But it just, when you have 60 new players, Shane said it, they got to come together. They got to be family. Yeah. And that will make the difference. You got all these transfers coming in. You got all this NIL money. We paid for every one of them. Burton told me, we paid to get all these guys in. And, like Dave said, we got the Purdue transfer. We got the transfer from Wisconsin. We don't know how good they were at their other schools. We didn't have a ton of film on them. Maybe we, like Dave said, maybe we would have been better off going after some FCS transfers that had been playing and had been playing well. Yes. That's what worries. That's what concerns me. And, like Dave also said, SMU announces they're going to the ACC. They raise $155 million in a week.
That's amazing.
We have to be able to do that. We have to come together, and Mike Burton can't do it alone. And we have to get the NIL money if we want football to be relevant. If we don't want football to be relevant, then we're going to have to go back to FCS.
So how do we get football to be relevant other than winning? How do we get?
That's the thing. We got to win.
You have to win. I think you're right.
But we did just win. I mean, y'all had success.
We were 6 and 6. Yep, 2 years ago.
Yeah, y'all had some. No, I'm saying when you were playing, we had success when I was playing.
We did, yes.
Right now, the men's and women's basketball, like for some reason, that state, that's all they love about just the Northeast in general.
Connecticut is not going to support football if we lose. You're 100% right.
Yeah, we've got to win, but at the same time, we need that support. You're exactly right, Steve. And it's how do we get that support? What can we do? Because when I was in Florida, I'm living in Delaware now. All you ever hear is, oh, it's a great basketball school.
Yes. Yep.
And I was like, well, it was a great football school when I was there. And, they just laugh at that. And I just don't know how we can get that perception to change. And
I do
understand.
The thing that bothers me the most, and I've told Dave this, we have resources like Dave, who knows every coach in New Jersey, who knows all the talent in New Jersey, and
all over the
coach
country.
Who recruits recruiting, whoever recruits New Jersey does not use Dave as a resource.
Yeah.
Shane Stafford is in Delaware. Shane Stafford knows the talent in the area. Shane Stafford knows the talent in the DMV. We don't use him as a resource. We have resources to find the high school recruits, and we're not using them. If I was the coach and New Jersey was my territory, I'd be on the phone with Dave Schuman every day. Every day. Every day.
How do they do it in Florida and Texas? It's so simple.
They're boosters.
It used to be obviously that people went to high school coaches, but they don't. Texas, they still do, but outside of Texas, most people don't even bother wasting their time going to high school coaches, right? Even in New Jersey,
I never
absolutely.
They go right to the people who can get to the player. Okay,
who have access. Yep.
You have to do that. I know guys don't like to do that for some reason in the Northeast, but that's what you have to listen. And I'm telling you, the Syracuse guy is doing that.
He is.
New Jersey.
But they do it for basketball.
No,
they do it for basketball.
You're 100% right. Shane, you're 100% right. So, I can't believe it's Fran Brown. Fran Brown is from the Philadelphia area on the New Jersey side in that's the Syracuse head coach. That's where he made his due, right? And
yes,
there's a lot of the better 7-on-7 clubs and these tackle teams when kids are coming through his youth, like these all-star. There's a ton of them in that Philadelphia, and Shane knows this.
The network, yeah.
Shane's from Reading. Philadelphia, Eastern PA, Western New Jersey area. There's a ton of them. Fran Brown knows who all those guys are. He goes to those guys. He gets the players from those guys because those guys are spending a whole spring with them traveling all over the country. It's not that they're great. They don't have to be great coaches.
Right.
They know the parents. They know the kid. Okay, like my club. Okay, we're in the Shore area in New Jersey. I told Steve this: the number one Gatorade player 2 years in a row in New Jersey was on my club as a sophomore. Okay, he was one of our best players, and he was the Gatorade player. He's going to Stanford. Okay, that's where he's going, dude. I would tell guys about him, and they would be like, "Oh yeah, we'll get to it."
We'll get back to you.
I'm like, when he comes to camp, he's never going to have to go to any camp. He's the best player in New Jersey. Period. He's the best player in New Jersey. Like, why? Does
he's obviously smart.
He doesn't need to come to your camp.
No, that's the
offer him $50,000.
And Dave, you know as well as I do, that's ego, man. That is ego. They want to do it their way. They want to be the ones that have discovered them, instead of just saying, "Hey, I know a guy that already knows this dude is legit."
Exactly.
You still discovered him. You just did it through a secondary way of getting him.
And that's what kids do.
The high school coach, he would tell you the same exact thing that I would tell him.
Dude,
the high school coach would say, "This guy is the guy ran for like 2,500 yards from quarterback 2 years in a row or something." Some insane, numbers that, when you hear these numbers, they sound like funny numbers. Like
PlayStation numbers.
Yeah, like he was a PlayStation number guy, dude. Yeah. Like his numbers were PlayStation. Ridiculous. And oh, by the way, even though he's not a quarterback per se, he still threw for like over 1,000, even though he's really a running back.
Yeah.
That's the kind of athlete he was, that he could still chuck it. And he was the starting safety on the team and was the best, but those are the things that, and by the way, on his team, there were four other guys on my club that were from his high school. And like 2 of them had Division I, West Virginia offered them. Like there's all these guys on that team, that group of kids alone. And now Rutgers was smart. They grabbed the lineman from that school. They got on that guy right away. Like Rutgers jumped on it, dude. And I just remember, like, I think about these things all the time. And then you get to a point where you're just like, hey, you know what? Like, why bother reaching out? Like, all they're going to tell me is come
get back to you. Yeah, we got to see him in camp. That's what bothers me. I mean, you have resources.
I hate that camp thing. I hate it. Like,
I know.
I hate it. I think it's the dumbest.
You started it.
No, I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the where they get like where they start to build their name. I'm talking. I'm actually talking. Yeah. I'm talking about getting them to summer camp.
Yeah.
We know, like figure out
do
who
not
the dudes
trust
are long
Yeah.
before that. You need to figure out who the dudes are long before that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If you're waiting
Only
for that
guys that are
camp,
coming to
it's too
camp are
late.
guys you're really not sure about. Really,
Exactly.
don't just tell a kid
They're on the fence.
who
Yeah.
has 5 offers already.
Yeah.
that you need to see him in camp.
Yeah. That's it. It's embarrassing.
That is.
It's
That
embarrassing.
truly is embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
He's
And
not
that's
coming.
like-
No,
not
he's
coming.
definitely not coming.
no,
He's definitely not, like, why
No,
does
you're
everybody else believe in me, but yet you need to see me work out?
you're insulting him. You're
If you're
insulting him.
Alabama, yeah, okay. Alabama, Georgia, right? They didn't offer you. You have 5 offers.
Yeah.
That's different.
Little
That is
different.
totally different.
But you're
I'm
talking about like 3 schools,
second-tier
5 schools. Yeah.
Yep. Second-tier schools, and some of them have done a great job of that. Like if you look at some of the second-tier schools that have won, they've figured out how to find that mix between getting guys at campus that they're not sure about they need to see and
Right.
jumping on guys that
Yes.
they need to jump on early. Those are the secondary schools that win, the Cincinnatis of the world who have had some success. And they don't always have success for the long term, but they have head coaches who probably move on to somewhere else, right?
Sure.
Houston's another example in the past that has done that stuff. And Louisville's another place, right? Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
right? So those are places that have found guys through different means, right? Like
There's always an intermittent.
UConn has to become that school. UConn has to become they have to do kind of what Syracuse did, like get a Fran Brown in, a recruiter that like Syracuse is a basketball school. Everyone, that's a basketball school.
Very true.
You know, but they also have had Jim Brown, obviously, and Urban Davis, and but if you would ask most people, they would say Syracuse is a basketball school.
They've had McNabb, but at the end of the day, it's 100% a basketball school. Any school from the Big East, old school Big East, is a basketball school. Boston College
was built on, correct?
You know, all those schools. I mean, Boston College, you could argue, could be kind of both, but
they're kind of both.
But I
agree with Carl Bond. Carl Bond is in New Haven.
Yeah.
He coaches. I mean, use him. Shane Stafford. He's in Delaware. He knows Philadelphia.
Look, I have more connections down in Florida than I do in Delaware.
He got connections in Florida.
Dave's connections in Florida are unbelievable.
Dave's got all the connections in Jersey. Why aren't you using?
I'll use a good example with Carl Bond. This is a great example because I ran a couple of camps with Carl Bond up in New Haven when he was at Hill House, right? And I could tell you. So this is another thing that I heard this from I interviewed the Harvard head coach, and he said something to me that was really interesting. And this is Harvard, obviously, probably Harvard, Princeton, Yale, right? The best school in the country, right? Yeah. So what he said to me is he needs to get on players in 8th, 9th grade that have potential to be Ivy League players, above Ivy League. He wants above Ivy League, but
of course,
players that are good students that he could cultivate them from the time they're freshmen to be able to do the classes they need to have and to be able to get the grades they need to have to keep them on the right course from the time they're freshmen. It's the first time I heard Ivy League coach say that, but it rang a bell with me, right? And so by the time he's ready to offer them, maybe as a sophomore or something, he knows that those kids will be able to get into Harvard. Okay. I think UConn has to cultivate players from the time that they're in 8th and 9th grade. And what I mean is even in state, like Connecticut doesn't have a multitude of players.
They got a couple.
If you go to certain places in Connecticut, in the cities, the problem at Hill House is a lot of those kids don't have a lot of relationships to be able to keep them on the path, right?
Right.
So UConn, because it's a tough inner city school. There are great athletes at Hill House. There are kids that want to be great football players and go to college, but their environment's not always a great situation. UConn needs to build relationship with mentors like Carl Bond.
Yeah, but he works with Hamden Hall
guys. Who are the guys that you see? We ran a camp up there. He brought like 20 Hill House kids and to it, and like we had like I don't know 70, 80 kids there. And I'm telling you, we had like a 4.45 from a kid from Hill House. I'm not kidding. In a 40-yard dash. I don't think that kid ended up going. Carl Bond said that kid ran like 21.5. He was like a sophomore, like the 200. Like, but you know what? I think maybe, and I'm not sure, but if grades were a problem with that kid, right? That could have been. We probably knew in 8th grade. Carl probably knew in 8th grade that kid was a bullet. All right. We knew he was a bullet in 8th. It didn't change when he became a sophomore. He was a bullet in 8th grade. So we needed to make sure that UConn got a resource because we have NIL money now. It doesn't have to go to the kid until you know that he's a guy, but somebody who can then help that kid stay on the path, get in the courses he needs to. If he has parental support, great. If he doesn't have parental support, get him the extra support.
Get him that mentor.
Get him
that mentor.
The clearinghouse.
That's what UConn has to do.
Yeah.
That's what Alabama does. That's what Georgia does.
Yes.
Now they're so good. I guess they don't have, but any emerging team is going to do that, right? If you all of a sudden see 1 year Louisiana was great. That's how the Florida guy, the guy who's the head coach of Florida now, came from Louisiana.
Billy Napier.
Yeah, Billy Napier came from Louisiana. You think that Billy Napier built Louisiana just by saying, "Oh, let's hope we get some recruits"?
Yeah, let's go recruit the normal way.
He knew who the 8th graders were. He knew who the 9th graders were, and he found the people who could cultivate them. So if they didn't go to LSU, he got them. Yeah. He got them. Louisiana Tech does that too.
Absolutely.
No, I know they do. I know they do.
So that's what UConn has to do. UConn has to roll up their sleeves like they do in basketball.
Yes.
They do it in basketball.
Yes.
Roll up your sleeve. Do you think Hurley ain't rolling up his sleeves? Hurley's the man. Like his family, and Shane's obviously a huge basketball guy. He can talk this way better than me. But the Hurley family is like royalty in basketball. Yeah. And the father was a great high school coach, like maybe the best high school
legendary,
coach in the history of the United States. And his sons take it from it. They know all the kids in Jersey City and New York City and Newark. Who do you think? Where do you think Danny Hurley? Who do you think his network is? It's New York City guys. It's national now because we're great, right? But he knows those New York City guys. He knows the guys in Newark. He knows the guys in Jersey City. He knows the guys in Long Island. He knows the guys in the southern part of Connecticut where the better basketball is, right? He knows who those guys are, and he knows who to talk to find out about a kid.
Exactly.
That kid engaged with UConn. That's what we have to do in football.
Dave, you've been in this business now for 20-some years.
What's that?
Especially. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Steve.
No, I was going to say Dave and Shane. The biggest issue, and I talked with Phil about it, alumni engagement. We don't hear from UConn. UConn doesn't reach out to us for anything. And that's the start of the process. And that's what I told Phil. I said, Phil, you want to raise NIL money, you want to build alumni engagement, start reaching out to us. Because there's a lot of us that feel abandoned because we don't hear from them unless it's maybe a letter for a donation.
You've got one guy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, Shane, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say one guy. We all know who it is.
Yeah.
That reaches out.
Yeah.
One guy.
Yeah. Mike does. Mike does all he can, but
no, he's talking about Baylock.
I was talking about Baylock. Yeah, exactly.
He's the only one. He's 98 years old.
He donates every.
Burton does the NIL stuff.
They need to have some kind of alumni board.
I can't believe they don't.
No, they don't. And you're right, though, Steve. You said everybody wants to, because let's be honest. As football players, you have to have some kind of ego in order to be great, because it's me versus you every play. And we're going to do this for 60, 70 snaps, every play. So you have to eventually build that mentality of I'm not going to lose. And then when we graduate and we're all walking with limps and concussions and everything's messed up, and you're forgotten about, but yet you helped build that program.
We were the foundation.
The foundation.
And that's what I told Phil.
they don't have enough people to help reach out, and they
No.
need. I mean, there's
Benedict,
so many things that go into
Benedict
this. But
I think Benedict, you know, obviously he helped rebirth basketball. He's trying to get into this Big 12 thing, you know, but he's a Southern guy, and I think he's on the right path. What the biggest issue we did have, and this is a little bit UConn administration's fault, and I love the guy that replaced Lou Perkins as the guy who replaced him was a great person, but wasn't the right guy for the job. Lou Perkins was the man. Like if Lou Perkins, God rest his soul, he just died this past year.
Oh my God.
I mean, Lou understood it, right?
He did.
Lou understood it. He was working towards it, you know, with Skip. I mean, he deserves a ton of credit for this because when
he made it happen.
When Skip left abruptly, I mean, he had Randy in, and he knew that Randy was going to do the job. Like we didn't know who Randy was.
I didn't know who he was either.
He somehow knew that Randy was going to be good there, you know, like
yeah.
The first, and I'm not the second round. Like I honestly dismissed the second time as like, you know, like
Randy they just went for the easy fix.
He was the easy fix. Was on round two, and Randy.
He didn't have a big budget for the coaches.
He didn't have the budget.
Correct.
He was, you know, he's a little older. Like there is something to.
He was handcuffed.
You come back a second time and it's not at the Duck. You come in there and the Ducks really aren't in a row, and you're a little older. You're like, oh,
and they didn't play at all in 2020.
I can only imagine. He comes in there and he's like, oh my goodness, like I thought I could do it again, but wait a minute, I might be wrong, you know.
And now he has to work even harder because
you got to work harder, and you're older, and you're older,
and you're older. You're like, what the?
I got to work harder than I did round one when I was young and energetic.
You're right.
You know. Because I told Steve this. I saw Randy Edsel put on. This was right before COVID. I was with Pete Connolly, God rest his soul, and I was with Pete Connolly and I was with Courtney Williams, and we were at a clinic in Connecticut, and we were at a football clinic in Connecticut, and I went to watch Randy speak on defensive back play, and he was this was round two. You know, he struggled. The team was struggling. I talked to Randy after for about 30, 45. He was great. He really is. He was really good to talk to, and but when I watched I'm telling you, his knowledge on defensive back play, it was the best defensive back.
That was his baby
I had ever seen.
That was his baby. Yeah,
bar none. He talked about all the different coverages, how when you play him, why you play him. You know, and he didn't have to go into that depth. You know what I mean? Like. He went through everything, why he played certain things, why, what works in this situation. You know, he went into match coverage. A cover two is cover four, which was like his big thing.
Yeah, he liked that.
He went through all those kind of things, and it was so impressive. It was so impressive, technique, why you play this technique here, why it was so impressive. And I thought, you know what? I'm like, this guy's struggling as a head coach, but like, it's funny because people say, oh man, oh, Randy, I'm like, this guy knows the game. It like in ways that he's forgotten more than I know when it's a back play.
If you listen to the podcast, I had him on my podcast, which was a miracle. I had him on my podcast last year. He was very honest about the situation he was in, and the second time around, he really struggled because the budget was severely cut. The state of Connecticut was in a budget deficit. So he could not hire really top level coaches. He brought in the big hire he had. He brought in a coordinator from Alabama to run the offense. And the guy kind of ran the spread. And in my opinion, the spread doesn't work at UConn.
Like we were talking about earlier.
When October and November hits, and you have the wind, you have the cold, you can't run the spread.
Yep.
You can't throw the RPOs. You can't throw quick game. You can't throw a lot of 3-step. You can't throw a lot of the jailbreak screens. You struggle with it. You got to be able to.
I would disagree, but you need a certain kind of guy.
You need a certain dude.
Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough to run in that weather, but
no doubt
he had never run that before. But that was his big hire. But other than that, he did not have a lot of money to hire the coordinators. And, he takes the loss to Holy Cross. He wanted to play in 2020. They wouldn't let him.
That was terrible.
They were very limited with what they could do. The coaches actually had to become teachers. He said they had to teach class.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah. Because what else are they going to do? They're just sitting around. What are they? They're not game planning. They made them teachers. He said it was just a very, very bad situation. He did not get along great with Jeff Hathaway when Hathaway replaced Lou Perkins.
And that's the guy who I think did not. Jeff was Lou's. I'll let you finish your thing.
Right hand man.
He was his right hand man. He was his ops guy. He was He was a great person, Jeff Hathaway. Great guy.
Great person.
Yes.
But he
great
wasn't
person. But he was not an athletic director of a big time.
Not of any sort. And that
he was a great number 2.
Randy and him clashed. And Randy felt, he was honest. He said that UConn raised its academic standards because they wanted to be the Boston College of Connecticut.
Yes.
And it was going to be tougher for him to get kids in.
Yes.
So he felt he peaked.
I had heard that as well.
He peaked at the Fiesta Bowl, and he regrets that the way he left. But he left because he didn't believe that he had the support of Hathaway in the athletic department.
Yep.
He thought the academic standards were too stringent for them to bring in recruits.
Yep.
And he had a shot.
I'm sure
he took it.
He's absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
And he did okay at Maryland, but he signs his extension, and then he gets fired midway through his first year of his extension. So he was chilling. He went to the Lions and was an advisor, an analyst, or whatever. He did that for a couple of years, and then he went back to UConn. And I think that eventually, if he had more time, he could have brought UConn around. So you're looking at 2017, 2018, 2019. He had 3 years. At UConn with us, 99, 2000, 2001, we were awful. 2002 was when we were good. 2003, we were good. And from then on, we never had a losing season. So I think if he was given the time that
and you know what else? You know what else hurt him round 2? And he probably told you this. There was no conference. So
he did not like the AAC or becoming an independent. He did not believe in that. He said that was going to kill him. But he has no ill will. His son is an analyst at Stanford. He's very supportive of his son. I think I honestly believe he should be a coach somewhere, but he's loving life.
A hard time about his son too, which I thought was very unfair. Remember that?
Oh my God!
Remember that the whole nepotism thing? He had to go to the state and testify.
Wasted millions of dollars investigating that.
What
blows my mind?
All these coaches, they all hire their sons.
Yeah. Who doesn't hire their kid?
The Patriots?
Lou Holtz, Skip Holtz, Skip Holtz, and his son now Trey.
And his son Trey. Yeah.
They're all every single one of them.
Did the Patriots do an internal investigation?
Yeah, that's some BS on that one right there. That's heavy. That's terrible. That's them running somebody out of the workplace.
So the state wasted close to $1 million on an internal investigation on Corey Edsel being the tight ends coach at UConn.
What a waste of time.
And the tight ends coach is like the lowest bottom, other than the running back coach. You're probably the lowest on the total. It's not like he made him the OC.
No. It's so that
Shane, I was a tight ends coach for a while.
You could see.
I was a running backs coach at first too. So trust me.
You could see how all these things. That's what goes back to my point about you have to coach. You have to have a team that's cultivating on the outside, not just on the inside. Yeah. So, anyway,
well,
I think we've gone on for a long time.
I got Lenny Baines.
Predictions. Hold on, before you go, predictions.
Yeah, we'll do our predictions. Dave, you can go first.
Unfortunately, last time I was closest to being right.
You were close.
I was closest. Tyler was second, and you were way down.
I was way off. I was way off.
I'm gonna say
Tyler was second.
I'm gonna say 28-7 UConn.
Okay. I'm gonna go 35-14 UConn.
All right, pretty much the same. Okay.
Yeah, I was oh man. Now I'm gonna sound like I'm just sandbagging this thing here and going in between y'all, but I was gonna go like 31-3.
I hope it's that. Merrimack's offense is similar. It's out of the gun. They RPO. They
31-3 or 31-10, somewhere in that range.
It fits our defense. It fits our defense. I mean, our defense can match up against an RPO team, a team out of the gun, and we have better athletes than they do. So it very well could be 31-3, and I hope that it is.
Maybe they score a late touchdown, 31-10. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. So
what I was gonna say is you got to ask offline, Tyler, because
I will. I got Tyler on today.
Tyler has.
I got Tyler on today. I'll get his.
Oh, you know, I can't wait to hear what he has to say.
All right, I will.
What was it? Did he have a summary
sure
from last week or no?
He was just disgusted. He was just disgusted.
You got to get on one of these times with Tyler.
Tyler's a lunatic.
Great. Oh, he's great.
I'd love to.
He imagine. He gets thousands of views anytime you put him in.
He is great. He's great, dude.
He's nonstop entertainment.
He was a D lineman when you were there, right?
Defensive end, yeah.
He's like 6'5", like
he's 6'6", yeah.
6'6". And his father played in the NFL, right?
Steve King played for the Patriots. Yep.
One of the great Patriot players, right?
Yep. So, he was on the Super Bowl team. Yep.
Yep. So, but he is. I'll tell you. Oh man, is he entertaining?
Yeah, he's CT out the ass, but he's crazy.
He doesn't remember what he said, but
Dave, he's great though. He's great.
I sent you the picture, Dave, of him falling off the dock at my camp. I'm pretty sure I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I sent you the picture of him falling off the dock at my camp. If I didn't, I will now. But it's hilarious.
He was an pro MMA wrestler.
He did. He did. Yeah. If you Google Tyler King UFC, he got knocked out. He got knocked the fuck out on UFC. That show they have, The Ultimate Fighter.
Oh, he did.
He had to get like stretchered out of the
wow. Bro, he got fucked up.
He got fucked up. Yeah.
He's a huge guy. A huge guy.
I'm telling you, I'm not messing with him. That dude is enormous.
No. He's a tough guy.
But he seems like such a great dude, though.
He trains people now. Yeah. All right. So I got to go. I got Lenny. So
I'll let you go. Yeah. We'll hit it up.
Just remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and throw them back at life.